This lock, the Ultra lock, is supposed to be able to hold up to 150 pounds of force against the lock, so pushing down on the lock without sustaining a failure. And indeed it does appear, and I can tell you from experience, this lock is very, very strong. There is a minuscule amount of shimmy in the blade, but this is really due to the channel that hardened steel bar runs in, moves in, and it really doesn't take away from the strength of the lock, the strength of the locked blade, and also from the utility of this knife. Alright, that's the older Recon 1 style with the Ultra lock, or Benchmade's Axis lock. Let's look at the newer style Recon 1. The newer style Recon 1 knife features what they're calling a Triad lock. Now, the cold steel Triad lock was developed by Andrew Demko. It's actually an evolution from a patented lock design originally created by John Permar. The stop pin, which is really the cornerstone of the Triad's locking strength. Try to get that on the film. That pin inside there, you can see the pin there. That pin is called the stop pin, and it receives all positive pressure on the cutting edge, and transfers it into the handle frame and the G10 liners, where it can be more effectively absorbed. Any negative pressures produced on the blade, for example, prying or digging actions, piercing, or even abusive spine wax, so wax across the spine of the blade, any type of negative pressures like that are redistributed into the handle, because the stop pin receives the forward pressure from the rocker mechanism and transfers it into the liners, where which protects the rocker and its pivot from falling down. You can actually see how that locks up, rotates, and locks. Very, very, very sturdy locking mechanism. The Triad lock is self-adjusting, which means that outside of keeping the lock free from the buildup of pocket lint in the mechanism, the Triad lock requires very, very little maintenance. It's designed to be self-adjusting. You can actually see the pins that go through the handle that are part of the stop pin. So here's that side stop pin right there. What I mean by self-adjusting is that, in the sense that over time, as parts begin to wear, the actual Triad lock's design will allow it to adapt, so that the locking bar always engages deeper, always wedges deeper in the lock channel between the stop pin and the shoulder of the precision cut tang notch. My friend let me borrow this knife for the review. He has put it to some use. You can see some nicking on the Teflon coating. But a really, really great knife. Really, really secure in the hand. Definitely a great tactical defensive folder. Great knife to have. Alright, let's look at the actual blade of both of our knives now. In the newer Recon 1 model, there is absolutely no give whatsoever, no play in the blade. Now, I actually prefer, setting this one down, I actually prefer the older Ultra lock technology because it's truly ambidextrous and the movement is very smooth. I say it's smooth like butter. If I want to open this knife, I just click the thumb disc, flick my wrist a very, very tiny bit, and the ultra lock moves in the channel. The blade comes out and locks into position. If I want to close it, all I have to do is pull the roller pin down, flick my wrist a little bit in upward motion, and the blade closes down shut. It's very, very, very simple. I can do it with both hands equally as well. Close it, reopen it. I can actually open this with very thick winter gloves on. Really, I can use this knife and open it equally well with both hands. Close it, open it up. Very, very simple, very smooth to use. And I actually don't have that same ability with the newer Recon style. It's much, much harder to open. Like I said, I do believe that this lock is perhaps stronger, the Triad lock, but it's much more difficult to open up. I actually even have to change my hand position to open it up with one hand. I don't have particularly large hands, so it's a little bit more difficult for me. I have to engage this thumb stud and move my hand to get it to lock out. Now I can flick it out with my wrist, but it's still it's night and day comparing the ease of opening the newer cold steel knife with the Triad lock versus the old cold steel knife with the ultra lock. This one is much more much faster to engage if I need to use it, and that's why I really like this lock quite a bit. Very, very easy to flick out. If we look at both blades of each knife, both blades are hollow ground. So once again, this is the newer style, older style Recon 1. This is the style that they're no longer making, although you can still pick these up at different places. So if you see this style, I recommend that you get this. It's a very, very good knife. And cold steel will still support any malfunctions that you may have with the knife, because it's one of theirs. They always support their products really well. Both blades though are hollow ground. The older Recon that I have here is a spear point tanto. This newer Recon though is a true tanto and actually has a half serrated edge. The blade cantle, if you look at the cantle, hopefully I can show you this on the video. This cantle here is much wider on the newer Recon 1 blade. Hopefully you guys can see that. Much wider than the older style. And I suspect that the cantle angle is less on the newer Recon 1 as well, which would make this knife sharper out of the box than the older style Recon 1. However, sharper out of the box, yes, it would definitely make it that by having a different angle on the blade cantle, but it would also, or should also, make the overall blade strength, as far as the edge strength, it should make that less durable than the older Recon 1 that maybe has a different blade angle or cantle. If we look at the older Recon 1, notice that the font size of the branding Recon 1 is much larger than the newer model. Put those side by side. Hopefully you can see that. So it's much larger.